The DJI Osmo Action 3 comes in this year with 120 frames per second shooting at 4K, a dual screen design, and improved cold weather performance. So is this finally the action camera from DJI that we've been waiting for? Is it a GoPro killer? It's time to get this camera on a selfie stick and take it for a run. First, let's start off with some context. I'm a running YouTuber. I review running shoes and go to races and sometimes vlog. Sometimes I'll use a proper camera, but mostly I'm doing this on an action camera or a 360 camera. I'm a longtime GoPro user and I love slow motion, so 120 frames per second shooting is one of the most important features that I need. I don't use features like photos or time lapses, so I won't really be covering those here. Next, I've already mentioned that I'm coming into this video with some biases as a longtime GoPro user, but let me also disclose that every single camera that I will mention in this video is one that I've purchased myself. No one has paid me to make this video, and no one will get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before this video goes up on YouTube. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about resolution and frame rate first. This year's Action 3 has the same resolutions, frame rates, and sensor size as last year. This means it can shoot up to 4K at 120 frames per second, and overall, the image quality on this camera looks pretty good. Images look immersive, and colors, for the most part, are vibrant. Sometimes when things are backlit, which apparently is how I shoot just about everything, the Action 3 has problems with dynamic range, which means you can't always see my face or you can't always see the shoes that I'm reviewing. But this camera also happens to be 20% cheaper than the latest GoPro, so this may be forgivable depending on where your price sensitivity settings are set and depending on how much you don't like seeing my face anyway. One major difference I notice when I'm looking at Osmo Action 3 footage is that it is very wide, like almost fisheye lens wide. There's a mode to de-warp the edges of the image, and that's what I've used for all the footage that I've shot, but even then, I find footage from the Osmo Action 3 to be just a little bit too wide. Things get very distorted at the edges, and for someone that reviews products for a living, it's just not a good look. And I think that's a problem that will affect normal people other than product reviewers too. With a GoPro, I generally shoot in landscape and then crop to a vertical frame when I want to post something to social. And because I can shoot in 4K and in a field of view that has minimal distortion at the edges with the GoPro, this lets me shoot once, but use the footage in YouTube horizontally and also in Instagram vertically. The Action 3 gives me the total number of pixels that I need, but that warping, even with the de-warp setting on, makes my footage less usable because of the distortion at the edges. Granted, the Osmo Action 3 comes with a housing and a mounting system that lets you switch easily between vertical and horizontal shooting. But while regular horizontal shooting can be done with just the camera and the magnetic mount, to get the vertical mount option, you have to use the included extra cage, which adds weight to a camera that already is heavier than a GoPro. Now, the biggest improvement year over year for the Osmo Action is the cold weather performance. DJI says that this camera will now work in temperatures as low as -4 degrees Fahrenheit or about -20 degrees Celsius. Now, I don't have access to real-world temperatures that cold right now, this time of year. But I can tell you that the cold weather performance so far is a vast improvement. Last year, the Action 2 would suffer at temperatures not even below freezing. The screens wouldn't turn on, and so many frames would get dropped while recording. I've had similarly cold temperatures so far this year with the Action 3 as I did last year with the Action 2, and things so far with the Action 3 have been working marvelously. So for most normal runners out there, the cold weather performance problem is fixed. But for my hardcore winter runners though, hit that subscribe button so you can see how this camera performs when things get proper cold. But even with the cold weather problem solved, there are still some limitations that the cold weather will present. A major feature that the Osmo Action has boasted about, even back to version 1 of this product, is the double screens. Whether you're shooting yourself or someone else, with the double screens you can see what the camera is recording. But when you're shooting at 4K 120, the only frame rate and resolution that I use, only the back screen works. The front screen just shows you this. Now, you can switch which screen gets used, but you have to swipe up to make the switch. When temperatures are warm, this process is tricky while running, but ultimately doable. But when temperatures require running gloves, it's just about impossible. As far as audio goes, I think that the Osmo Action 3 does a pretty good job of capturing audio while on the run. It's pretty quiet out here in Moraine Hill State Park, but it is a little bit windy, so I'm picking up some wind. And there's always going to be a little bit of noise coming from the movement of the camera itself. But overall, I think it's doing a good job and definitely can be used as action camera audio without any additional help. Now, this does mean that you probably will have to do at least a little bit of audio processing afterwards, but I don't like to run with all this extra stuff around just to capture audio. I usually like to keep my speaking parts when I'm with the action camera relatively short. But if you do have to talk for a longer period of time to the camera, one of the nice things that you could do is set it up with the DJI wireless Lav system. That system comes with 2 wireless mics, so you could set up an interview and you could have really good audio in camera in the shot. It's a little bit awkward because you have to open the door for the charging port to get to the USB-C port to be able to plug it in. And overall, it's not really something that I'd want to run with set up this way, but in a pinch, this could be something that could definitely help you out.
Oh, and just to compare, this is what the audio sounds like at about the same distance, talking at about the same level when I don't have the Lavs set up.
Two last side notes. First, file sizes seem to be really big with the Osmo Action 3. It was the same way with the Osmo Action 2. I haven't done a super scientific comparison, but overall, it just seems like the DJI footage always takes up a lot more space than GoPro footage. The other thing I'll mention is Rocksteady. It's DJI's stabilization technology. It's pretty good. I don't think it's quite as good as GoPro's, and I especially notice it when I leave things at 1x speed or 1/2x speed, but generally it's pretty good. So overall, is the Osmo Action 3 a pretty good camera? Yes. The image quality is pretty good, the stabilization is pretty good, and the overall usability is pretty good. It's not a GoPro killer, but this is definitely a step for DJI in the right direction.
Yo, what's going on?